The Woman in Cabin 10 has just been released on Netflix, and when the trailer first dropped, I was intrigued because it was the latest mystery thriller to land on the platform, and it was starring none other than Keira Knightley. Focused on Laura Blacklock, a journalist that was invited on a yacht in honor of Anne Bulmer, who was going to be making a special announcement following her battle with cancer. When a mysterious person went overboard in Cabin 10 late one evening and Laura was gaslit into believing that nothing happened, the person that's paid to uncover the truth as a profession started doing that very thing. Within this video, I'm going to be breaking down the ending, the twist, and sharing if the movie's worth watching. So let's get into it. Here is The Woman in Cabin 10 ending explained and review. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The ending explained. When it came to the ending of this movie, I felt it was symbolic of a couple of different things. The first thing that I took away from it was the risks that there are in journalism and the power that telling the truth can have. I say this because when you look at the power of the stories that Laura was writing, the one that we heard about that she returned from during the beginning led somebody that spoke to her to get murdered because they decided to speak out. The second was that Anne felt she needed to go to the journalists to get the story out about her giving away all of her money to the foundation because she knew that the greediness of her husband would never allow it. So the journalistic route was an avenue that needed to be explored, and it showed the value in it. Plus, the movie also showed the cost that came with being a journalist, with the fact that Ben, somebody that Laura once cared for and had a romantic relationship with, ended up being killed. It almost puts the journalist at the heart of the story, and it showed how their lives could be impacted in many different ways due to what they get involved in. And then there was also a nicer angle during the ending with the fact that the new intern that started joined because she read Laura's piece about Anne, Richard, and the disaster. But it was written in a way which showed the beauty of Anne and didn't focus on the evils that occurred, showing that Laura's story inspired somebody new to take up the profession, showing the power of writing in a completely different way. Another core theme that I took away from this movie was the greediness of the elite, and the fact that many of them would go to whatever measures as long as it meant ensuring that they themselves were safe, and the others were safe too. We saw this with Richard looking out for the doctor who would have ended up in jail if Richard didn't bury the crimes that he committed. And we also saw it with the fact that Richard killed his wife Anne, but had the means to be able to get away with it if it wasn't for the likes of Laura hearing and being as persistent as what she was. People didn't initially listen, and the threat of violence or death was something that was always there because money talks and silence can be bought. Everybody was on that boat originally because they wanted to improve their image and support a cause that they thought would better them rather than what it actually stood for. The final main thing that I took away from the ending was that it showed the power of a story if it's done right, and that people will eventually stand up for what's right and listen if it's put right in front of them. Laura standing on the stage and speaking Anne's words in front of everybody felt like a metaphorical representation of her story that she was going to go on to tell and publish. And we saw that with the truth coming out, people's minds changed quite drastically and quickly. Right at the end, we saw that Laura had published her story and Carrie got off with impersonating Anne and wasn't arrested or charged. She was back in her home country and was reunited with her daughter. As well as that, all of Anne's money was given to the charity, and we saw that the one person in that circle who stood out and wanted to give back what she felt she'd taken from life got her final wish. With Richard being killed, it showed that he valued money and materialistic things over life itself, and again, it felt like a representation of the life that many of those people actually live. My review of the movie. I'm just going to come out and say it. I thought this movie was pretty weak. It started off being relatively interesting, and there was tension that was at the heart of it. All of the characters that we were introduced to during the beginning seemed quite strange and had odd behaviours, and I thought it was almost going to have a bit of a murder mystery tone. But as well as that, the moment that the real Anne got thrown overboard and it was made out like none of it had actually happened, I thought it could have gone in a really cool direction, especially considering that Laura was having those flashbacks and episodes to the person that was killed in her previous story because they spoke to her. However, with it ending up being that the real Anne was dead and there was an imposter there called Carrie, it just didn't feel like the most shocking of twists, and it was one of those reveals where I kind of just rolled my eyes. I get there was Larson's facial recognition technology that was used, but I mean, come on. When somebody looks that similar, it almost goes off into the sci-fi genre because the tech was that advanced. In my opinion, the pacing of this movie was also a bit all over the place, and the supporting characters that were in it just felt a bit wasted. None of them brought anything to the table other than showing us how the super rich can act when it comes to expressing themselves around others and trying to improve their image, but outside of that, they genuinely brought nothing to the table. They weren't involved in the story whatsoever. The only characters that were worth having were Richard, Laura, Carrie, and the Doctor. Even Ben getting off the boat at the end and shoehorning in a romance between him and Laura for the sake of it just felt like a completely random story that didn't need to happen. He'd turned against her and essentially snitched on her, but then went back to save her, so from a narrative perspective it just felt strange and a bit all over the place. I would have much rather had the story going in a direction where something was going on inside of Laura's mind, and maybe the guilt was consuming her from the previous story that she worked on. Maybe all of this could have been happening in her head, and the different people on the boat could have represented different people that she'd done stories on over the years, because witnessing that person being killed could have been the final nail in the coffin for her, but it was never going to go in that direction. In terms of the climax, if I'm being honest, I found it a bit boring, and I didn't feel that excited by it because it all just felt a bit inconsequential and like we knew what was going to happen. There was no reveal to happen during the ending, and that's why it didn't quite ever feel like there was a climax. I didn't think that Carrie would be killed, I didn't think that Laura would die, and I knew that Richard would most likely end up dead or arrested, so it all just felt a little bit predictable. Carrie getting off scot-free at the end was an interesting move that they made, as she literally went along with the entire thing because she was promised money. Granted, she didn't agree to Anne actually being killed, but the activity that she participated in ultimately led to that, so I thought that was a bit strange that she just walked free. In terms of the performances, I thought they were all okay. There's nothing really to write home about, and it's a shame because it doesn't feel like Keira Knightley does that much these days, and I always thought she was pretty good. But this is just a bang average performance from her, and I don't think the writing helped. I can't really fault it, but I don't think there's much to praise about it either, so it's a bit of a muchness. When it comes to the other characters, like I said, they were all just a bit forgettable, and even though the performances were on par with each other, they're just not going to be the roles that they'll be remembered for. The likes of Hannah Waddingham just felt like a bit of a waste in this movie. So now the big question. It's a Friday night, you throw on Netflix and this movie pops up. Do you watch it? Personally, I think this one's a miss. It's just not got the story or the quality and performances to keep you engaged, despite its 1 hour and 30-minute runtime, which is actually quite short. Not enough happens in it, and the gut-punching moment with the crescendo never arrives, so you're left just feeling a bit empty. The actual reveal falls flat, and it's so underwhelming. The visuals are quite nice, especially the scenes in Norway, but don't waste your Friday night watching this. There's plenty better movies than this that's out there. So, there you have it, The Woman in Cabin 10 ending explained and review. If you want to see more of your favourite TV series and movies being broken down, then check the playlist below, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future videos. What did you think of this movie? Share your thoughts in the comments. As always, thanks for tuning into the video, and I'll see you in the next one.